Consider Route 1 Fusion for your dealership's digital retailing. Customers can build vehicle financing options online with estimated payments, trade-ins, and you can even showcase optional protection products. Faster process, elevated sales, more satisfied customers. Visit route1.com/fusion to connect for a demo today.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Friday, April 24th, 2026. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, Stellantis is placing its bets on 4 core brands. Cox Automotive buys AI company Fullpath, and Porsche adds a coupe version to its electric Cayenne lineup. Plus, Cox Automotive's Skylar Chadwick talks about how dealerships are growing service and parts revenue.
I talk about it all the time. Your cash cow to your dealership is your fixed operations. And it is so important to the growth of your business on both the front end and back end.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. Stellantis is placing its bets on 4 brands: Jeep, Ram, Peugeot, and Fiat. That's what 5 sources told Reuters. The rest of the automaker's 14 brands, they're getting a smaller slice of the pie. Brands like Citroën, Opel, and Alfa Romeo will lean on technology from those 4 core brands and focus on markets where they already have a foothold. Instead of killing off brands, Stellantis is betting on shared platforms and some strategic rebadging to squeeze more efficiency out of its sprawling portfolio. CEO Antonio Filosa officially unveils the plan next month in Detroit. Cox Automotive is buying up Fullpath, an AI company that helps dealerships wrangle messy customer data and actually use it for marketing. The plan is to pair Fullpath with Cox's existing tools like Vin Solutions and AutoTrader. Cox says dealers will be able to clean up their databases and reach buyers more efficiently. Steve Greenfield of Automotive Ventures says Cox spotted holes in what it offers dealers, and he thinks competitors like CDK Global and Reynolds & Reynolds are probably watching closely, maybe even shopping for their own AI acquisitions. The deal should close in about a month. And Porsche is adding a coupe version to its Cayenne electric lineup. The 2026 Cayenne Coupe Electric arrives this summer in 3 flavors: Base, S, and Turbo. All pack the same 113 kilowatt-hour battery with 800-volt tech and all-wheel drive. You'll pay about $5,000 more for that sloping roofline. Prices start at just over $116,000. Why the coupe? Turns out 40% of the more than 20,000 Cayennes sold in the U.S. last year were coupes. That's a lot of customers willing to pay extra for sportier looks. And those are today's headlines. You can find more details on all those stories at autonews.com. Chinese EVs are coming to North America. Brands like BYD and Chery will reach the Canadian market soon and will offer lower prices than legacy automakers. But there's a reason they're cheaper. And our own Greg Layson writes that customers and dealers should ask some important questions about that. Greg is the digital and mobile editor for our sibling publication, Automotive News Canada, and the host of the Automotive News Canada podcast. He joins me now to talk about his latest column on autonews.com. Greg, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Good to be back.
All right, Greg, what questions should Canadians be asking about these Chinese EVs and their price points?
I mean, the 2 words that come to mind are how and why. How are they so cheap? Why are they so affordable? What makes a Chinese EV so much more affordable than something built by a legacy automaker or a Detroit 3 automaker or something overseas? And there are reasons why they are more affordable. And it's because China does not necessarily play by the global rules of trade. They undercut everyone at every turn. We've seen this in solar panels and steel. They offload these and dump them and undercut everyone. I kind of liken it to what Uber did when it arrived on the scene. They undercut cab services so that they gained market share. That is what China does. And how do they do it? With really low cost labor. In some cases, forced labor. Reported, proven forced labor, and not just in China, but outside China in places like Brazil. And so when you're not paying your employees, and when you have government backing to the tunes of billions of dollars in perpetuity, the way Chinese automakers, some automakers do, it becomes really easy to offer your vehicles for much less than, say, a Ford Mach-E or an electric Volkswagen that might be built in Chattanooga. This is why China is so cheap. They also use cheap electricity, coal-fired power plants. They use 10 times the coal-powered electricity that Canada does. And so when you add all of these factors up, and it's all overhead going into building a vehicle, they have less, we have more in North America, and they produce cheaper electric vehicles.
Now, what about dealers? This week, the Canadian Automotive Dealers Association warned its 3,500 members to take extra care when striking contracts with Chinese or other overseas automakers working to establish sales networks in Canada. What's the concern there?
I mean, the concern is read the fine print. What is it that a Chinese brand is asking you to do? What are they asking for control over? What are they asking you to give up? Basically, the Canadian Automobile Dealers Association wants similar arrangements to those with legacy automakers so that they can still form dealer councils. They can have a dealer council head. They have a voice at the table. They encourage local manufacturing. All of these things that are part of agreements with legacy automakers, they want those in the fine print. They don't want, an online sales model only. Is one of the things that CATA is telling them to look out for. Look, it's China. There's a lot of distrust there. I've written about the cybersecurity of these vehicles. There is a lot of mistrust with China and Chinese brands, and it's why the federal government has said if they're going to manufacture in North America, in Canada in particular, it needs to be with a trusted global partner, someone like a Stellantis or a General Motors. So all of that mistrust is coming out right now as we're about, months away from 49,000 of these vehicles entering Canada. We just heard Bloomberg reported today that Chery brought over some Canadian dealers to showcase vehicles over there and try and gain a foothold within the Canadian dealer network as early as this year.
Interesting stuff. Greg Layson, as always, thank you so much for joining me.
Anytime.
You can find Greg's column, Ask Yourself the Uncomfortable Question of Why Chinese Vehicles Are So Affordable, at autonews.com. Coming up, Cox Automotive's Skylar Chadwick discusses how dealerships are growing service and parts revenue. That's next on Daily Drive.
Some automakers raced to go all in on EVs before market headwinds pushed them into an about-face. Now, a new report suggests that the bigger risk may be pivoting back too fast.
If they guess right an index one way or the other, and they get it right, they could be even more profitable, but they could also be bankrupt.
On this week's episode of the Automotive News Shift podcast, a conversation with Eric Jesse, Managing Director at Boston Consulting Group. He explains what BCG is hearing from automakers and suppliers as they try to stay profitable through an uncertain transition. I'm Molly Boygon. Join me on Shift, available this Sunday wherever you get your podcasts.
Route 1 Fusion is an expanded digital retail solution built to enhance your dealership's customer engagement and improve the results of your online efforts. Many customers expect a fast, online-friendly experience and prefer clarity early in the process, especially if they have a vehicle to trade. So ask yourself, are your current digital retailing tools helping shoppers understand their trade-in value and helping your team move deals forward faster? With a subscription to Fusion, you can benefit from its trade-in valuation feature that empowers customers to estimate the value of their current vehicle early in the process. This helps customers arrive in-store better prepared, make expectations around payments and equity more realistic, and move conversations and decisions faster. The result is higher quality leads, more productive interactions, and a smoother transition from online to in-store. And trade-in valuation is just one example of how Route 1 Fusion can expand your digital retail experience. Fusion also supports other features that include appointment scheduling so customers can view your availability and book a time. Pre-qualification tools with subscription provide quick, credit-based payment options, and production product presentations allow you to present products earlier to help customers explore their options. Schedule a personalized demo to see how Fusion can help generate more opportunities from your online traffic. Visit route1.com/fusion to connect with Route 1 today.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. Service and parts revenue is critical to dealership profitability, and dealerships are finding new ways to grow their fixed ops business. Cox Automotive just released its 2026 Fixed Ops and Ownership Study with insights on how dealers can capture more revenue. Skylar Chadwick from Cox Automotive spoke with Automotive News senior retail editor Dan Shine about the key findings.
Skylar, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Friday edition of Daily Drive.
Hey, Dan, thank you so much for having me today. I'm super excited to be here to talk about our new study that we just released.
Yeah, the 2026 Fixed Ops and Ownership Study, chock full of great data, really interesting insights. Tell me a few highlights. What do you take away from what you saw in the numbers?
I think there's some interesting numbers that go along with this. And I think there's also some new findings that we found this year that I think are some eye-opening things. And hey, it's not every dealership that's being affected by this, but I would say the majority of the dealerships that are being affected right now, one of the top metrics that I see in KPI is that competition is intensifying. We're seeing almost 300,000 new independent repair shop, your general repair shops, your tire shops, those types of things, those quick lubes, has grown 12% since 2018. And so that's a number that I think that as dealerships start to feel that pressure, where that pressure is coming from, those general repair shops are really taking a handle to those customers. And I think one of the biggest factors that I think about this too as well, that goes along with that KPI, is we're seeing that even though the dealerships revenue has jumped, right, between parts and labor and all those good things that are coming from a dealership, but one of the things that's interesting to me is that we're seeing those customers drop off and servicing their vehicle at that year 2 mark. And those customers still have more time of warranty on their vehicle and work and so forth. And so, part of that 12%, we're starting to see a lot of early deflectors come off of that. And I think that's really concerning to me. And as dealerships, what we got to do to help retain our customers. I think that goes a lot back to what I've been telling a lot of the media people over the last week, is that we've got to learn how to manage our white space, right? Our unused opportunity and our capabilities of being able to help retain those customers, so that we don't continue to lose that 12% and that 12% doesn't grow anymore, and we continue to hold on to those customers for sure.
Yeah, that's really actually surprising, right? The defection rate for most, warranty goes 3 years, and after that, whatever accepted numbers, usually about 70% of people then go elsewhere for their repair business. But after year 2, it's kind of startling, and it just goes to the point you say that there's more competition out there. There's more options for folks. It's maybe closer. The guy down the street's more convenient than my dealership that has, can't get me in for 2 weeks, perhaps, or doesn't have the part. It's dealerships. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a wake up call.
Yeah. I think another big part of that wake up call is that cost of walking away from a customer, right? That 12% number, where you now are attaching that dollar amount, so the full service, what a customer tends to pay to the dealership is, up above $12,000 now. So every customer that you sell a new car to, that customer is going to plan on spending about $12,000 or more in service at your dealership. And so as dealerships, we really got to start putting an attainable number on our customers. And I think dealerships already do this today, and it's nothing new, but that $12,000 plus is it's a pretty big number to start thinking about. We don't want to lose that customer, right? And especially when I start talking about fixed ops, right? A lot of people, fixed ops is this is the year for fixed ops. Everybody said 2025, this is the year for 2026. And the reason is we know that is because the age of the vehicle has gone up, right? We saw it from 12.6 to 12.8 this year. And that's a huge jump. So that means these customers are ready to service their vehicles. We just got to open our doors and create white space for those customers to fit in to get that service done for sure.
And another important thing about retention, and the old saying, sales sells the first car, service sells the rest, is that I think you said in the study, it said, returning customers are 2 times more likely to buy their next new vehicle from their dealership if they're getting good service there. And I think it was 56% of consumers with prior dealership service experience say high trust is in the dealership is a top reason they consider purchasing a new vehicle. So there's another reason that not service dollars walking out the door, but then your potential new vehicle sales also walking out the door.
Yeah, isn't that a big number? 56% of your consumers say they're willing to buy their next car from you and your dealership with a service at. Hey, I have to say this all the time, but general repair shops are not buying cars, folks, right? So dealerships have an advantage here. And so we really need to make sure that we're focusing on that customer retention factor there as we focus on that 56% of consumers. Let's get it back in. Let's keep them in our ecosystem for sure.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about transparency in a couple of different ways. People defecting often cite dealerships too pricey, too costly for repairs. And that may or may not be the case, but that's just what people believe. A lot of people believe. And I think their study kind of talks a little bit about, if dealerships are able to have a little bit of menu shopping and then also comparison, they should, kind of ghost, shop their competitors, the guy down the street and kind of get those costs for a repair job or for a brake job or whatever it might be. So talk about, I guess, about menu pricing and how that transparency in pricing can help a dealership.
Yeah, I talk about this all the time. There's two factors that to a consumer. Either they deflect and go to these general repair shops that we're talking about here today as well, but it's pricing and availability. And so when you think about it as a consumer, the first thing I'm going to look at is what can I do to get an oil change? What's it going to cost me to get an oil change on my vehicle? And if that pricing's not there, they're going to deflect off of that. They're not even going to get to that time scheduling point. So what we really got to do as dealerships, we really got to close that gap in and making sure that we create trust and transparency in those gaps of making sure that we do the pricing right. And everybody thinks that the dealerships are more expensive when it comes to general maintenance and repair. That's not true, right? Our study shows that $261 is the average across our OEM dealerships. And if you go to a general repair, it's $275. So it's a proven fact. So go out and prove it to yourself, dealerships that own that to earn that customer's business, and making sure you put the pricing there and making sure that the customer knows exactly what it's going to cost you into the dealership, and then make sure that you have a time available slot for that customer to get into the dealership is a big focal point. I'd make a point this year. Dealerships have got to change their practices and make best practices about it, of those actions for sure.
Other part of transparency is video walkarounds, video inspections by the technician. Here's your car up on the lift. Your brakes have this much left. Your tires look good, but kind of going around and sending that video to the customer. And the study said almost half, 49%, customers said being able to see a video and have why a repair is needed, they're more, half are more likely to approve those recommended services than without video.
Yeah, I think that think about the technician being your doctor, right? Your advisor is just kind of the front desk person when you walk into an actual doctor's office, right? The technician is the actual doctor, right? And consumers want it. And I think the other thing that video does is that we have done it here at Cox Automotive is we're helping put that decision in the customer's hand so they can see it firsthand with the video. They can also see the cost and they can approve it, right? It really breaks down that barriers, and it also helps improve trust. And I think that's a big thing that why consumers are saying, hey, we're starting to see that dollar amounts as well having an effect on if I'm going to even trade in that car. So that goes back to that buying their next vehicle from you as a dealership. So $3,000 plus recommendation. Consumers are starting to change their focal point of mind of like, do I want to keep this car? Do I want to continue to fix it too as well? So those are some big things that I look at those things as video is a major factor in building trust and transparency with our customers.
What are the implications for dealers? What are the takeaways that you want to kind of leave with dealers, service directors about this study and what the numbers show and what they kind of need to keep in mind and think about to improve their operations and increase revenue?
I think the biggest thing is getting our sales and service conversation between those two departments on key. And I think that is a big factor. And I think when I look at the numbers in the study, 33% of our consumers want a value trade on their vehicle. That takes both of those partners into play there too as well. And I think the other thing is really focusing on maximizing our additional white space in our scheduling tools, making sure that all of our unused opportunity is maximized, right? Making sure that we change the focal point, right? I think some of our tools here at Cox Automotive, like one of our through X Time in our scheduling platform, change the focal point. Maybe offer marketing campaigns to get a consumer to come in the afternoon versus in the morning, right? Those are prime times, and we want to make sure we're using those prime time availability. So that goes back to that white space. So we got to do a better job of making sure we maximize our white space and really make sure that we're taking every opportunity and making sure our pricing is accurate, we're transparency with our customers. At the end of the day, just making sure that we take care of the customer. We cannot continue to lose more than 12% of our customer base to general repair as a dealership. I talk about it all the time. Your cash cow to your dealership is your fixed operations. And it is so important to the growth of your business on both the front end and back end. So it really makes sure that we really focus on making sure that we create that trust and transparency with our customers to make sure that they have a great experience and they want to continue to come back, because that customer is looking for the next vehicle, believe it or not, right? Vehicles are getting older on the market. They're going to be willing to trade those in. We're going to start seeing those vehicles come into dealerships inventory. And those are the best types of cars to buy, is the vehicles that you've done service on, and you know the vehicle history of that vehicle. Those are the best kind of cars, right? Those are the best cars. I always say to dealerships all the time, the best auction that's happening in your service is in your dealership today, is in your service lane. So it's really a big focal point to make sure that our service and parts and also our sales departments are working closely together to make sure we maximize the consumer experience for sure.
Skylar, really appreciate you jumping behind the numbers and giving us a little bit deeper dive into the Cox study. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Skylar Chadwick spoke with Automotive News Senior Retail Editor Dan Shine. That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News Executive Producer Jake Neer, as well as our own Jack Walsworth and Paige Hodder for their reporting for today's podcast. You can get the latest news on fixed ops strategies, brand investments, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. Come back over the weekend for our Weekend Drive edition of the show. We'll talk about the week's biggest news stories, including more about Stellantis' plan to focus investments in 4 core brands.
This is a similar strategy to what they tried in 2014, where they were going to focus their investment on where their money is. And it makes sense on paper. It's just, it weakens their overall portfolio.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoyed the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.